Daniel had spent the last 3 days attending non-stop business meetings, and by the time his plane landed, all he wanted was a hot meal, a quiet hotel room, and a full night's sleep. The airport terminal buzzed with life as travelers hurried in every direction. Some rushed toward baggage claim, others embraced family members after long separations, while the constant sound of rolling suitcases echoed across the polished floor. Daniel checked the arrival board, adjusted the strap of his laptop bag, and joined the crowd waiting for luggage. He pulled out his phone to answer a few unread emails, barely paying attention to the people around him. A flight announcement echoed overhead, followed by another warning about unattended baggage. Everything felt ordinary, predictable, and routine. Then someone grabbed his arm. Startled, Daniel looked up to find a young woman standing beside him. She looked to be in her late 20s. Her elegant clothes suggested she came from a wealthy family, but her expression told a completely different story. Her eyes were wide with fear, her breathing was uneven, and tiny strands of dark hair clung to her face as though she had been running. "Please," she whispered urgently. "Don't pull away." Daniel frowned. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" She shook her head. "No, but I need your help." Before he could ask another question, she stepped closer, slipping her hand around his arm as though they had known each other for years. "For the next 40 minutes, she said, her voice trembling, "I need you to pretend you're my husband." Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "What?" "I know how insane this sounds," she replied quickly. "But if you say no, I'll be in serious danger." His first instinct was to walk away. Every warning he'd ever heard about strangers flashed through his mind. Nothing about the situation made sense. Yet there was something in her voice that didn't sound rehearsed. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't trying to distract him. She looked genuinely terrified. "What danger?" he asked quietly. She glanced over her shoulder instead of answering. Daniel followed her gaze. 2 tall men had just entered the terminal through the automatic doors. Both wore dark suits and earpieces. They weren't running or shouting. Instead, they calmly scanned every face in the crowd with practiced precision. The woman's fingers tightened around Daniel's sleeve. "They're looking for me," she whispered. "Who are they?" "I'll explain later. Please just smile." Before Daniel could respond, one of the men looked directly toward them. His heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, Daniel placed an arm gently around the woman's shoulders. She leaned against him naturally, resting her head near his shoulder as if they had done it countless times before. The 2 men walked closer. Daniel forced himself to stay calm, though every instinct told him something was terribly wrong. One of the men stopped only a few feet away. "Excuse me," he said politely, looking at the woman. "There you are." She looked up with a small smile. "Oh," she said, sounding almost annoyed. "Can we help you?" The man studied her carefully before shifting his attention to Daniel. "And you are?" Daniel swallowed. "I'm her husband." The words came out more confidently than he expected. The second man narrowed his eyes. "I don't believe we've met before." Daniel shrugged casually. "My wife and I don't usually introduce ourselves to strangers in airports." For a long second, nobody spoke. Passengers continued walking around them, completely unaware of the silent tension hanging in the air. Finally, the first man smiled politely. "Our apologies," he said. "We thought she might be someone else." "No problem," Daniel replied. The 2 men exchanged a quick glance before continuing through the terminal. Daniel waited until they disappeared into the crowd before letting out the breath he had been holding. He turned toward the woman. "All right," he said firmly. "You owe me an explanation." Instead of answering, she looked at the large clock hanging above the baggage claim. "36 minutes left," she whispered. Daniel blinked. "What does that mean?" She looked back toward the crowded terminal, her fear returning almost instantly. "It means they haven't given up yet, and if they discover who I really am before those 40 minutes are over, neither of us will leave this airport safely." Daniel stared at the woman, searching her face for any sign that this was some elaborate joke. Instead, all he saw was fear. She kept glancing over her shoulder, as if expecting the two men to return at any second. "You promised you'd explain," Daniel said quietly. She took a slow breath and nodded. "My name is Emma." They picked up Daniel's suitcase from the baggage carousel without attracting attention and began walking slowly toward another section of the terminal. Emma stayed close to him, still pretending they were a married couple. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this," she said. "I didn't have anyone else to trust." Daniel frowned. "Why me?" "You looked calm. Everyone else was rushing or staring at their phones. You were the only person who seemed like you'd stop and listen." Daniel wasn't sure whether to feel honored or foolish. "So who are those men?" "They work for my father." Daniel stopped walking. "Your father?" Emma nodded. "My family owns several international companies. To the public, we're respected and successful. Behind closed doors, everything is controlled. Every decision in my life has been made by someone else." Daniel could hear the pain in her voice. "My father arranged my marriage to the son of one of his business partners," she continued. "He called it a partnership. I called it a prison. You refused? I did more than refuse. I ran." She explained that she had secretly booked a flight using a different name and hoped to disappear before anyone realized where she had gone. But someone had informed her father, and his private security team had arrived before her flight even landed. "They're not trying to hurt me," Emma said. "They're trying to take me home." Daniel looked around the terminal. "Then why not go with them?" "Because if I do, I'll never be allowed to make another decision for myself." Her answer was so immediate that Daniel didn't question her sincerity. As they approached the main exit, Emma suddenly froze. "They're outside." Daniel looked through the glass doors and immediately spotted one of the suited men speaking into a phone, while another watched every passenger leaving the building. "We need another way out," Emma whispered. Daniel remembered seeing signs for a connecting terminal on the opposite side of the airport. "Come with me." Keeping their pace steady, they walked through a quieter corridor leading toward another exit. Emma slipped her hand into his, making their act appear even more convincing whenever security cameras or airport staff looked in their direction. After several minutes, they finally stepped outside through a smaller terminal where no one appeared to be waiting. Emma smiled for the first time since they had met. "I think we made it." Daniel hailed a taxi, but before either of them could get inside, his phone rang. The number was private. He hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A calm male voice spoke. "Mr. Carter?" Daniel frowned. "Who's this?" "We know you're with Emma." His heart pounded. "What do you want?" "You seem like a decent man, so here's some advice." Daniel glanced at Emma, who was watching him anxiously. "Walk away now." "And if I don't?" There was a brief silence. "Then you'll discover this isn't simply a family disagreement." The line went dead. Daniel slowly lowered the phone. Emma's expression turned pale. "They found us already, didn't they?" Daniel nodded. "I don't understand how." Emma suddenly reached into her handbag, searching frantically. "No. What is it?" "My tracking bracelet." She pulled out a delicate bracelet decorated with tiny diamonds. "It was a gift from my father." Daniel looked at it carefully. "You think it has a tracker?" Emma nodded. "I never took it off." Without hesitation, Daniel removed the bracelet from her wrist and looked around. Across the street, an airport shuttle bus was preparing to leave. He ran toward it and quietly slipped the bracelet beneath one of the empty seats before stepping back unnoticed. Moments later, the shuttle pulled away. "If there's a tracker inside," Daniel said, watching the bus disappear into traffic, "whoever's following us will be chasing the wrong vehicle." Emma looked at him with surprise. "You think fast." Daniel gave a nervous smile. "I usually don't. But somehow, ever since you grabbed my arm, my life has stopped being normal." For the first time since leaving the plane, Emma laughed softly. But neither of them noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Inside, a man wearing dark sunglasses lowered a pair of binoculars and smiled. "Interesting," he muttered into his phone. "They're smarter than we expected. Keep watching them. The real game is only beginning." Daniel knew he had one final decision to make. He could walk away, return to his ordinary life, and forget everything that had happened at the airport. Instead, he looked at Emma and said, "You're not facing this alone anymore." For the first time since they had met, Emma smiled without fear. It was small, uncertain, but genuine. She admitted that she had spent years living under the control of her powerful father, a wealthy businessman whose public reputation hid a darker reality. To the outside world, he was respected and admired. Behind closed doors, however, every important decision in Emma's life had been made for her. When she refused to marry a business partner's son in order to strengthen the family's financial empire, her father decided she no longer deserved the freedom to choose her own future. Daniel listened carefully as Emma shared everything she had been hiding. She had discovered documents proving that the marriage was not about love or family tradition. It was meant to silence her before she exposed illegal business deals, money laundering, and years of financial fraud involving several influential people. Knowing the truth had turned her into a threat. The evidence was stored securely on a flash drive hidden inside a small silver necklace she always wore. She had escaped before anyone realized she had taken it, but once her father noticed it was missing, he said trusted.